Hello, everyone. Welcome back to When Shooting's Life podcast. I am your host, Kue Lee, and I got Tanner Liang and Stephan Vang with me. The topic for tonight will be about archery. So, yeah, with that being said, for those who doesn't know you two, can you guys give a quick background about yourself? And Stephan, you can start.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you, Coop. Thank you, Tanner, for having me here. I did not expect to be on a podcast like this, but hey, I appreciate it. It always means a lot to, reach out to the community, get to know people, talk to everybody. But my name is Stephan Vang. Uh, you probably see me on Facebook and YouTube, a little bit of YouTube here and there, but I'm just a guy who likes to be outside, shooting his bow, being outdoors, shooting, just overall just meeting people too.
Tanner?
If you guys don't know, Tanner Liang here. I was a previous M-class carry optic shooter, and also a pretty avid archer. Just like Steph said, I love being outside. I love doing anything outside. So, yeah, that's pretty much me.
All right. So before we officially begin this podcast, I just want to let everyone know that I do not know anything about archery. All right. So I will stay quiet 99% of the time. I will just be the one who is asking the question. All right. So just keep that in mind. I don't know anything. The two experts here are Stefan and Tanner. Okay. So you guys ready for the first question?
Let's do
All right.
it.
All right. So the first question is, how did you guys get into archery and why?
Archery? Oh man. Um, since this is a shooting podcast, I start off with guns as a kid, because guns have that bang factor, and of course, it captures anybody's attention. But archery, I started archery when I was probably like 8 or 9 years old,
Mhm.
watching my dad shoot, going to the park with him. And then my brother started. He started shooting, at a young age. My brother's uh, a year older than me. We're almost Irish twins. And I started seeing him shoot. I'm like, I want to shoot, but I couldn't pull his bow back. So
What
eventually, when I was able to finally pull his bow back, I started shooting his bow. And I started wanting my own, but you know, brothers at a young age, we don't share very well together, and that just kind of lit a fire in me. I wanted to do it more, and then it just grew from there.
what kind of bow did you start with?
I started, um, I started off with sticks and a rope in the backyard, and then, and then I got the first bow was a bear, mini adventure. I think that's what it's called. I have it somewhere, and my uncle has it somewhere in his closet, but I handed that down to his son, and hopefully, it's still good. One day I can maybe hand it down to my boys.
At that age, I mean, I might ask the wrong question, but how many pound was the pole?
So, growing up, my dad didn't really know like the true like every bow is fitted different to each
Hmm.
individual shooter, right? And that bow was really long for me. It wasn't even my draw length. I was, anchored down. I was drawed all the way back. It was past my face, but I'm just holding it because I wanted to shoot it. But that bow was probably anywhere from 35 to 40 pounds starting. And I was a scrawny little kid, so I could barely get that back. But it motivated me even more.
What about you, Tanner?
So, I'm a little different than Stefan's, I guess, background. So, when I was younger, I was like 7 or 8. I was notorious at like snooping into my dad's stuff. And like I would always get into it and like ruin it or lose it, like tools, his golf clubs. I pretty much broke all his golf clubs. But one day I found his bow and it was an old like it's an old Browning. They make shotguns, but I guess they made bows too. And I had no idea anything about it. Couldn't even pull it back, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Um, but so my dad never really he said that he bone hunted before I was born, but when I was born is the reason why he stopped. Um, but anyways, fast forward, I really enjoyed hunting. And at that age, around like maybe 10, 11, or that age, I kind of wanted to. do more than just gun hunting because that was really the only hunting that I did was, during rifle opener and I'd go with my dad, whatever, that'd be it. Um, but I got so invested in hunting that I would start watching things on YouTube or seeing all these posts about bow hunting. And I thought to myself, like, I want to do that. You know what I mean? And in Minnesota growing up, I found out that a lot of the metro areas, like close to where I lived, only allowed for archery only. So that was kind of like my passion to be like, all right, well, like, I'm gonna get a bow so I can just hunt down the road rather than waiting once a year to go make a 2 to 3 hour road trip to go hunting. Um, so when I turned 16, um, was kind of when I got into archery because I could start driving myself to the range, driving to my own hunting spots. So I think 16 was when I first started, and that's the reason why I started.
So this might be an ignorant question since I don't really shoot the bow or hunt. How good do you think you have to be with the bow before you go bow hunting?
That's a good one. So obviously, I think like for Steph and I, like I mean, I've only hung out with him for a limited time, but I can already tell we're going to be great friends. But when you have people like me and him who are just very, very invested and like almost to like autistic levels of archery, uh, we want to like stack arrows. We want that arrow to go right behind our pin or like our sight. Um, but I think like most people would probably be like, hey, at 20 yards, if I can put it into like a pie plate or like a paper plate, it's good enough. Um,
Mm.
so it's kind of hard, right? And I think even some areas in Minnesota, they require some people to take like a class before they're allowed to hunt somewhere. And I think that's their only qualification is can you put these arrows into this thing at 20 yards? Um, Obviously, I would say strive to be better than that. But yeah, it's kind of dependent.
Yeah, for Minnesota, like the hunting wise, they used to be to hunt with the bow. It used to be 45 pounds, um, and now it's 35, which I don't agree with that. I still think it should be at least 45 pounds and up. But like Terrence said, we're so invested, we love the sport that we like to stack arrows, even break arrows, robin arrows, arrows get expensive. But for my standard, for my boys and when they're getting into it and they're gonna want to finally harvest and take a life of a deer, I want to make sure, hey, you're gonna be stacking arrows and at a pie plate or even smaller. And the average hunter in Minnesota, you're probably not gonna shoot past 30 yards. And I'm gonna definitely push it because when you're hunting, you're gonna be taking a life, and you want to take that seriously, and you want to put that animal down as fast and quick as possible. So the tighter the groups of your arrows, and the more stress you could take into the shot, the more you could put into it, the better.
In your guys' opinion, when you guys go hunting, do you guys think it's more dangerous when people hunt with a gun or a bow?
I definitely think if you were to look up statistics of hunting with accidents with a bow compared to a gun, um, you will hardly find anything with a bow. Um, with the gun, then it's always a big factor. People are all, they're always gonna accidents gonna happen with the gun. It's because it's easier to get hurt with it. Statistics, the numbers, it's doesn't just people don't really get hurt with archer because archers tend, to be more. Not saying gun shooters are not responsible, but archers are more. It's gonna take a more factor into it
Hmm.
to get hurt.
Hmm.
But it really depends on the person. It really depends on the person.
Okay. I'm assuming you have the same answer, Tanner.
Yeah, no, pretty much. And if anyone's listening to this, like you look up like the regulations that Minnesota places, the regulations for firearm season is way stricter than archery. And I think that's just common sense, really. I mean, for example, like most archery areas or like archery seasons, they don't even require blaze orange, right? But if you're hunting with a
Mm,
firearm, they require that. So that's just one example of it. But yeah, definitely, I guess less dangerous. But again, depending on the person.
okay.
Yeah, like for example, when I go hunting, when the season opens, I'm always out there as soon as the season opens, early season. You gotta factor in, hey, you got small game hunters, they're shooting squirrels in the tree. We were in the Midwest. We're gonna be in the tree stand. I don't like knowing that there's gonna be somebody that's not gonna be safe or not gonna second guess, second things before they shoot. So whenever I'm in a tree stand, I hang up an orange hat on top of me. If they're looking for squirrels, they're gonna see an orange hat. Hey, don't shoot me, I'm up here. So I'm always very cautious like that too.
All right, so speaking of animals and stuff, this is like a whole different topic, but do you guys know if animals see the same color like human does, or do they just see black and gray? Do you guys know anything about that?
It's a good question. So deer would not see any other colors besides black, gray, and blue.
In blue?
Yeah, they will
Okay.
see, it's just part of their eyes, the retinas in their eyes. Blue is gonna pop out a little more in color. Not like in I'm not quite the specific terms of the shades, but they're gonna see blue more compared to anything else. But for the most part, you know, orange, when you orange, they're not gonna know the difference.
So why do people wear camo?
Camel to look cool,
All right. Yeah, I don't hunt. I don't hunt like that, so that's why I'm just curious.
So like
No,
deer, when they look around, they're gonna see they have like a picture image, and they're gonna look back at it to see make sure it's still the same. If you ever seen a deer that's eyeing you down, staking you down, looking into your soul, they always like have that fact of looking back, trying to catch you slipping. So fact, quality camel does go a long way,
Mm.
but Walmart camel works just as good too.
I think the whole point of camo is to just break up like the instead of having like a solid figure, or especially like somebody standing in a tree, right? That camo is going to be able to help break up the outline of the human or whatever it may be.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so for the second question, is there any difference between bow target archery and bow hunting? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let Tyler take this
uh,
one. I feel like I'm talking too much.
no, man, you're good. I think there's a slight difference, but also very comparable. So in archery, the terms target archery or bow hunting, target archery is more like I guess the competitive side of things. Versus bow hunting is, just that is bow hunting. Um, where they differ though is that target archery takes archery and it makes it into like a game. Um, there's rules, there's regulations, there's certain divisions, there's certain equipment you can use or don't use or whatever it may be, and it's more tailored towards like a score versus bow hunting. It's you're just shooting an animal. Um, so again, like I think they compare in the principle of the fact that at the end of the day you're both shooting a bow, but I think one just kind of targets a different area versus the other.
Yeah, I agree with that. With target shooting or target archery, there's going to be outdoor, and there's going to be indoor, and they're similar but different in their own ways. If you look at indoor shooting, you're shooting paper. It's a game of perfection. You want to do the same thing over and over again. So, you see them shoot perfect scores, and they just want to keep doing everything the same, repetitively, everything the same, anchoring, looking, breathing. It's a game of perfection, and it's tough. A game of perfection is definitely tough, and it's a big mental game too, not just physical. And hunting, you have a lot of different factors that come into it. The wind, you think about the weather, how you're going to shoot, how cold it is that day, all sorts of things. You have the elements of the world coming at you compared to an indoor, it's a little different. And then when you go to, target outdoor is a little different too, because you're shooting 3D targets, different shadings of the light, different angles. You're shooting uphill, downhill, a lot of factors like that. So it really, at the end of the day, it's a game of perfection when it comes to target shooting. Um, Hunting's gonna be a little different because you have the elements of the world outside against you.
So are you guys saying that if someone like me who doesn't know anything about bow shooting, if I want to get better at bow shooting, should I learn from a person that focus more on bow target than a person that hunts?
If Yeah, I think that if you're strictly trying to learn how to shoot a bow good,
Mhm.
then you 100%. Yeah,
Okay.
I would go after the person who competes. Um, but like if you're wanting to learn bow hunting, right? Obviously go to a bow hunter because they're gonna know, hey, like how do I read the wind? Or,
Mm.
like where should I put my tree stand? Where should I set up? What signs should I look for an area to hunt at? So they're kind of, like I said, they're different, but they're the same at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. But if you were to if you were to learn, bow hunting, from if you had to choose two different people, a gun hunter and a bow hunter, I would probably say you're gonna learn so much more from a bow hunter because you have a longer season. They're gonna have more knowledge into it because it's a longer season, and you pick up the small details of it because bow hunting is it's kind of a love-hate thing, but you know it just it drives you more. You're gonna learn 10 times more from archery hunting compared to a gun hunting. Gonna pick up the small details. They're gonna make a huge difference. They're gonna take you a long ways.
Yeah, that kind of remind me of people who teach gun shooting for hunting and people who compete with a gun. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. Um, so
How
the
do,
third question,
how does that
yep.
differ though? Like, oh, sorry, but how
Oh,
does that differ? Yeah,
so in my opinion, and this could be what I'm saying might be ignorance because, like I said, I don't hunt. So, um, for me, my opinion is that with someone who compete, it's like USPSA or PCSO, two gun, three gun, they focus more on being accurate. And compared to not saying that you're not supposed to be accurate with hunting, but I think hunting it has more things to learn about more than just shooting the gun. So that's why, like in my opinion, if you want to just focus strictly on the shooting side, then you want to seek out for people that uh focus on shooting. If you want to focus on like the tactics of hunting stuff, then you should learn from a person that hunts. You get what I'm saying, right?
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So, so yeah. The third question is there any difference between firearms and archery?
My bad. Could we go ahead? Sorry.
Oh, okay. So the question is there any difference between firearms and archery? I think you should answer this one first, Tanner, since you're pretty big into both of them.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think again, I like face value, there's a big difference. When you go deeper into the principles of it, they're pretty much the same. I would say the biggest difference though is going to be, I guess, the the speed of everything, right? So coming from a competitive shooting background, everything is very dynamic, very fast, very like how fast can you process, how fast can you get your sights on the target, all this type of stuff. Versus archery, it's almost like you do everything at your own pace, and all that matters is where the arrow ends up. So it's almost the same thing principle wise because you're simply shooting something, right? You're putting something where you want it to go. But I think the processes are a little different, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you agree with that. Definitely the face, like you said, John, the face value, like you said that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, they're very different. The speed factor is huge. And like I mentioned earlier, this it's the bang that catches people's attention with guns compared to archery. It's it has different steps. But with guns, competitive shooting, I'm a not even amateur level like you guys are. I mean, you guys are so much higher in level with me. I've only done like here and there, but with that, it's the speeds are so much faster. You have to, shoot faster. You have to, have clean breaks. Be mentally there. I've tried to shoot a couple times where I wasn't mentally there. I was just all over the place. I'm like, I gotta stop. Like I gotta reset. But with archery, I can take my time with the shot process, and just kind of like, take it down a notch and just you know make it an art form, I guess.
As someone who shoot a bow a lot, have you ever tried to go faster than you could? Like for example, in the shooting gun world, the goal is to always go as fast as you can. Always go faster and faster and faster. Is that a thing in the archery world?
Um, so I've definitely experimented with this myself, and the reason why I was experimenting with it was because I was having some issues with target archery. Um, I think every archer kind of finds like their sweet spot, right? So when they draw their bow back and they get kind of settled in right before right before they're going to shoot, every archer kind of has like a time limit in where they can shoot without things going off the wheels, basically. Um, and so, I can't really answer that, but I know some people like to shoot fast, like on a faster pace, and then some people like to really take their time and slow everything down. But yeah, that's so. I think that's good that you brought that up though, because we can kind of it kind of shows how different
Hmm.
shooting is versus archery. Because yeah, performance type shooting, we are striving to be faster and more accurate. Versus, like I said, archery, it's like everything is slowed down and like, um, and even for the archers who shoot at a faster pace are still shooting pretty slow. um, so yeah, no, I've definitely experienced with it, but it's really dependent on archers.
Yeah, and to add on top of that, what Tanner said, like even when you shoot like indoor tournaments, an archery you do have a time limit. When you're shooting competitive shooting, you have a time limit. So to shoot fast, it is tough, but everybody has their form and their process and how they go into it, with the the trigger process and the break. Um, I think the only thing I would probably compare shooting archery fast to is probably going to be more of like a traditional. I've seen traditional bow shooters on horses shooting fast like that, but shooting fast with a bow, a traditional bow, knocking that arrow on the string every time is hard. It's definitely gonna be very hard compared to you just having a clean break in the trigger. But to like overall like on that, it's with regular compound shooting and target shooting indoor, it's gonna be tough trying to shoot fast, but everybody has a different pace to it in the whole process. But it would
So
be cool to see somebody just shoot super fast like that. I don't know. We're gonna have to try it, Tanner.
Yeah, let's try it.
I mean, I seen a lot of trick shot video from a guy that was using a traditional bow. I think it's a traditional bow. So when you guys say traditional bow, the traditional bow doesn't have those beads for the sights, right?
They
Yep, this
can.
is yeah, they
Okay, okay.
can. Yeah.
Oh, they
I
can?
think
Okay.
that the thing that separates, I guess, traditional, and I say that with like air quotes, and compound is the training wheels, as some archers would say.
Yeah.
Compound bows have those big wheels at the end of the at the end of the bows, versus traditional is just like a stick and string.
So how do you guys aim when it doesn't have like those sights? How do you guys aim at traditional bow?
Could be more of a different, I guess, different styles to it. But for me, my younger brother shoots nothing but traditional bows, and he's always like, your bows have training wheels. But it's instinctive shooting. Instinctive shooting, you're gonna, for me, when I'm shooting a travel, I'm gonna draw back on it. I can try to use the tip of that arrow as like almost kind of like an aiming point,
Hmm.
but for the overall part of it, it's gonna be instinctively. It just it's kind of hard to explain instinctive, but once you try it, like you're gonna be like, oh wow, okay, I get it. This is like it just clicks. It's naturally gonna flow. You're gonna see your arrow fly where you're hitting. You're gonna be like, oh, I don't suck. This is instinctive shooting. It's greasing the wheels, and you're gonna catch the rhythm of it.
Yeah, Q, it's very similar to shooting actually. Like, let's say you have like a 5 yard open USPSA target, right?
Hmm.
Like, do you see your sights, or do you just kind of use your like your natural point of aim and your index to rely on your aiming?
Your natural pointing.
Exactly. So that's kind of
Okay.
like it's kind of like that, right? Like you
Ah,
just,
okay.
or it's like
Okay.
similar to like when you throw a ball, right? Like you don't, there's
Yeah,
nothing you can
okay.
aim off of throwing a ball. You just got to look with your eyes, and your body subconsciously
Perfect.
does everything else to make that ball go to where you're looking at.
Yeah, so yeah, it's
Perfect
kind of like
example.
a slingshot. Yeah, dude,
Exactly.
that's a perfect example. Okay, that makes sense. Um, Next question. How does your shot execution with guns differ from your shot execution with archery?
So go ahead.
My shot execution. So I'll start off with archery. I when I draw, sometimes when I'm having a rough day, even when I'm shooting outside, I'm shooting like crap. It's like a daybreak for me. Like, oh, I'm having a crappy day. Kind of ruins me, and then I'm like, I gotta come back and reset. But like I'll talk myself through the my shot process. I'm gonna draw back. I'm gonna put my sight on my target before I even anchor, look through it. I just take my time, I breathe through it. And then I compare that to my shot process when I'm shooting. I feel like I'm all over the place because I gotta go faster. I gotta be accurate. The faster, the better. And then with archery, I can take my time. It's almost like a mental a therapy. Like I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Am I pulling too high? Am I pushing too hard? I gotta calm myself down on that, walk myself through it. Compared to shooting, I gotta be quick. I gotta make fast decisions. If I miss, I can't go back to it unless I gotta correct myself. What am I doing? Is my grip wrong or am I off? Or I just go through that and I just kind of walk myself through. Oh, that was a good round. What did I do different from the round before? And it's just so much faster pace. I gotta really sit down and like visually think about what I was doing. Well, how come this was better? How come that was better? In archery, it's a lot slower. I can like really think about it.
For sure. Yeah. Um, I would say my mental or my process of shooting a gun versus a bow is my gun. I'm very reliant on my sights. That's like my cue to just to shoot. If I see my sights on the target, that's when I'm going to send it. Um, versus a bow, I found that some days my pin, like my sights on my bow, are very steady, and some days are not. But what I've learned was it's a term in archery. It's called trusting the float. Um, and I learned that sometimes when my sights aren't steady, and I just work on executing my shot, that somewhere in the whole process, that arrow still goes kind of where I want it to go. Um, so I think like Stefan said, I think it archery really forces you to settle down, right? Control everything, think about everything. And it's to me, it's a huge mental game. And that's honestly why I like to balance between shooting guns and shooting archeries because guns is mental as well, but it's like a different mindset. Um, versus archery, it's like Steph said, it's like therapeutic almost. Where it's really just a game with yourself. And yeah, that's how they're the same, but they also differ. Um, so yeah,
Would you say you have the more surprise on your shot you are, the more accurate you are. Tanner, what would you say that is like relating to guns, shooting your guns?
Um, so when I first started shooting guns, everyone around me was like, every single time you pull the trigger, it needs to be a surprise shot. And I never really that never really clicked to me. I always was like, okay, like yeah, but it never worked out. Um, and the reason why is because I think I was telling myself like, okay, this has to surprise you. And when I was telling myself like, all right, so like this is gonna go off. I don't know when it's gonna go off, but like it's gonna go off. It's gonna be a pretty loud bang. Something's gonna move, right? Recoil is gonna happen. That would force me to flinch, and I would start missing my shots. It wasn't until a couple of years ago, where I learned to kind of embrace the shot, right? Just kind of let recoil happen. I know there's going to be a bang, just let it go. Um, and everything happens so fast, especially with the firearm, that like as soon as the gun goes off, anything that you do, human reaction wise, isn't really going to put input into the gun. Um, well, it will, but it's not going to affect where that bullet goes because everything, like the bullet's already out of the barrel on its way to the target before you can even react. Um, so yeah, I think that differs from archery because archery you almost want that surprise break. You just want to keep pulling till it goes off. Um, versus a gun, right? Like you can almost time that shot. Like hey, the sights are on the target. I'm just gonna pull the trigger, and that's gonna be it. Like it's already gone. It's whatever. Um, so if that answers the question. That's kind of I guess my answer.
Oh yeah, that's a great answer. A great answer.
Speaking of trigger, I know that okay, this might be an ignorant question also. So speaking of trigger, I know that with the compound bow, they have this thing that has a trigger, right? Is that what you guys call it, the trigger? So do you guys pull the trigger the same way? Uh, like do you guys pull the trigger the same way as you guys pull a gun or and a bow, or is it different?
I think every archer has their own way of doing things.
Okay.
I think like traditionally though. you don't it's called like punching the trigger or slapping the trigger, right?
Mhm.
In a gun world, that's you can get away with that. Like that's kind of it's
Mhm.
kind of taught like, hey, slap the piss out of the trigger, right? Just
Yep.
rely on your grip to make sure your gun doesn't move. Versus archery, people get away with it all the time. It's not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a in archery they call it a form of command shooting. But in archery, traditionally it's taught to use back tension. So instead of using individual digits, whether it be your thumb or your pointer finger or whatever, instead of using that one thing, you want to use your whole hand and your like your shoulder muscles and your back tension muscles to actuate that shot.
Mm.
Which is it's I know I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it because it is very like it's very different, but they do differ.
Okay.
The different styles, different ways of doing it. Like you said, to add on top of the command shooting, you look at these pro shooters, for the longest time they would give people crap for command shooting. So when a puncher, they call them a puncher, punch shooting. When those punch shooters are on, they are on. But they're not always going to be 100% accurate. They're always going to have a little flyer, a misflyer here and there. So going to, back tension, surprise shots, again, it's always going to be surprise shots always going to be more accurate, in the archery world they say that. But you'll hear those terms of, punchers or, drive-by shooters. They put that pin on there. They wait, they go by and they say drive-by pop. They're gonna punch the crap out of it. That's why the wrist slings you see on most archers, rocket slings. They're gonna call it rocket slings or something like that. Everybody has a different term
Wrist
for it.
rockets, yeah.
Yeah, wrist rockets. Yeah, yeah.
Do you guys think okay, so I want to hear you guys on your thoughts on this. So, do you guys think the arrowhead makes a difference? So, for example, I own a bow and I do some bow shooting here and there, not as much as you guys, but only once in a blue moon. And I only own three arrows and I reuse them over and over and over again. And noticed that sometime I I am I am not accurate with all of them. Or is it because I'm overusing them or is it just me? Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes sense. So for me, for example, all my arrows, I mark them like one, two,
Okay.
three, four. So if I'm ever shooting, I'm like, that arrow flew weird. After I'm gonna shoot, I'm gonna collect the arrow. I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna look at it, observe it, and I have an arrow spinner. I'm gonna put it on there to spin it. Is there a wobble? Is this arrow crooked? So you always check your arrows like that. But as long as your arrows are cracked or bent, it should be okay. But always checking to be safe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think cool since you reload and it's very similar, right?
Hmm.
So when people build arrows, everyone builds them out to a specific spec, right? They
Hmm.
have spine, you have DPI, which is grains per inch. You have types of fletchings, different knocks, different field points, whatever it may be. Same thing with firearms, where it's like reloading, like, okay, like I can get a 115 9 or 147. I can load it to this amount of powder,
Mm.
whatever it may be. Um, so every archer has their specific, I guess, load, right? Just like every competitive shooter does. So there's that aspect as well. But usually, right, if everything is good to go, it's most likely going to be you,
Okay.
right? Because
Yep.
I don't think anybody is going to be more accurate than a bow, and I don't think anybody can be more accurate than a gun.
Okay.
Well,
Because at the end of the day,
yep.
oh,
Go ahead.
at
Sorry.
the
Go
end of
ahead.
the
Go ahead.
day, at the end of the day, I think they're both just mechanical devices,
Yep.
right? And like if we don't put any human input into those things, they're going to be shooting the same exact hole all day long. The reason why we miss or something doesn't happen right is because of those human errors. Sometimes it could be a bad gun or bad bow, bad tune, whatever it may be, but for the most part, it's usually us.
Yep.
Yeah, to add on top of that, cool. When's the last time you got your bolt properly looked at?
Never, dude. I
Never.
got it a couple years ago and I never done anything to it. So like I do have a big backyard. So I just once in a while I take it to the backyard, I practice and sometimes I hit the target, sometimes I don't. And I just been using the same three arrows that I have because I don't feel like spending any money on something that I know that I won't be using as much. So I was just wondering if it's because am I overusing the arrows and stuff like that, but more likely it's just me. Because sometimes I miss the target and I will hit my shed. And does that damage the arrowhead?
It can, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. 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 Some of my arrow go through woods, the woods and stuff, and I still reuse it. So I was just wondering if that makes any difference.
It definitely could. I've had that happen a few times where like I would miss my target and go deep into the ground.
Yeah.
Could have hit rock, something hard or whatever, and then I
Okay.
would check that arrow and it'd be a little wobbly, and I'm like, oh, that's toast, because if it's not a straight arrow, it's gonna wobble, it's gonna fly weird, and it's not gonna group well, it's not gonna shoot well.
What are those thing called? Is it called feathers? The at the end of the arrow?
Fletching?
I mean
You
I
talking about
don't know.
like are you talking about the back of the arrow?
Yeah. So
Yeah, fletching or veins.
does that matter more or does the arrowhead matters more? Like when
I
it
don't
comes to accuracies.
I don't think um I think they need to work in conjunction.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
I don't think I
definitely
can
need
say
working. They definitely need to
yeah, I
work
don't
in conjunction because you don't want to make sure your arrow's straight. You want to make sure your field point's not crooked too, And on top of that, the fletchings, if they're bent, one's kind of bent the other way, it's gonna make your arrow fly weird. They For example, some bows they when the arrow flies out of the bow, it spins to the left, and it's gonna if you hit wind or something, it's gonna help correct any
Mm,
deviations that might happen in there. So those fletches play a big factor in steering your arrow.
that's good to know. All right, I need to check on my arrows now. I'm pretty sure all of them are are
what you
messed.
need to do is you need to go up to Stefan's place and have him tune that thing up to you, man.
Yeah, dude. And that's the thing too, where it's kind of hard to. I mean, maybe it's because I don't look hard enough, but I've always tried to look for like a bow shooter to learn from and look at my bow and help me sight in the bees and stuff because I don't even think I sight in correctly, to be honest with you. That's how much I don't know about bow shooting.
Yeah, me and
Um,
Steph were talking at the
yep.
last 3D shoot about how he wanted you to come out with us one of these days.
You have a lot of fun. Did you have
Yeah.
fun, Tanner?
I had lots of fun. Texas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely come out. Like I gotta come shoot a match with you guys, and you gotta come out shoot a 3D event with us. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Even before that, come. I'll look over you if you have like figure out a day or something.
Yep.
Bring your bow. We'll look over everything. I'll kind of walk you through, give you the quick 1-on-1 of things, and then tune your bow up and probably shoot one these days.
Yeah, definitely. I will definitely hit you up for that, or both of you for some bow lesson. All right. So next question. You guys already kind of answered this question, but you guys could try to go a little bit deeper with this question. So the question is, are there any mental process differences between a gun and a bow?
I'll let you start, Tanner.
Yeah, no, we definitely kind of already answered this, but I guess to go deeper in it, yeah, I think there's a big difference. And again, just kind of what we touched on earlier about just how archery it just forces you to slow everything down and really pay attention to everything. Um, I think one of the biggest things in archery though is shot execution. Which to those that are listening who don't understand that, it's basically like um, how you're able to manipulate that release to make it go off and whatnot, right? So there's a lot of different techniques, but everyone kind of has their own way of doing things. But in archery, it's about what's the most consistent, right? So like someone could have terrible form, someone could be a trigger slapper or puncher all day long, but if they're consistent, it doesn't really matter, right? Versus um, or before I go any further, the reason why I say that is because you can get away with a lot. But at the end of the day, it has to be consistent. It has to be the same every single time. Versus a gun, you can you can kind of get away with having a sloppy grip. You can get
Hmm.
away with having a bad trigger press. You can get away with all these different things because I think it's just a little bit more forgiving than with the bow. So again, my mental shot process is a lot different between a gun and a bow because again, the gun I'm relying so much on the sights. If the sights are there, I'm pulling the trigger. Um, And if I call my shot correctly and I say like, okay, I pulled the trigger, but I moved my gun right before the shot broke, I know that was a bad shot. I can call it on the fly and I can make it up. Versus archery, it's like that was a bad shot. I can't make it up. So like you only have that one shot to make count, right? So it's almost forcing you to slow down a little bit, and it really forces you to think. Versus with a gun, you have you're allowed to make makeup shots. You're allowed to shoot again and get as most points as you can. So yeah, I think the mental process is essentially the same, just slower with archery.
Do you think the reason why we could get away with a gun more is because of the speed of the bullet compared to the speed of the arrow? Or
Yes,
okay.
100%. In archery, there's a term called follow through, and I know in firearms too, there's a term of follow through as well. But I for one, I never understood the term follow through in guns because, like I said earlier, once that bullet is out, it doesn't matter what you do afterwards because it's not going to affect anything, you know. But with a bow, if I put input into that bow while I'm shooting, just me torquing the bow or like torquing the rise a little bit is going to affect that shot,
Mm,
right? So there is some since everything is slower, yes, there is more time for the human to throw an
mm,
error.
that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You hit that dead on perfectly. And like with that mental factor too, like it's also gonna for me, the nerves and the mental game get to you. Like for example, I've shot a couple tournaments and you're up against people side by side and you got to shoot. Sometimes like I'm thinking I'm like, okay, I'm pulling through my shot. I'm pulling through my shot. And then behind me I hear somebody's shot go off, and it kind of throws me off. I mentally have to tell myself, no, focus on me. Nobody's gonna care about my shot but myself. So you
Hmm.
have to get the mental mind of pulling through that. Even when I'm shooting, shooting in the backyard of my girls or so, I'm trying to learn how to use my recoil, fight back into it or so, but with guns it's more forgiving. You can get away with it. With archery, if I'm off by a bit, I'm mentally like I'm trying to fix that faster, if that makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense. Okay. Wow. So basically, bow shooting is similar to long precision shooting then.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like I think like one video I love watching sometimes is you look up Crispy when he shoots 100 yards against the long range of 1,000. I think it was 1,000 yards, and it was a good watch.
Mm.
Yeah, Chris got his hat on right
Yeah.
here.
If you get the chance, you should watch that video. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Send me the link. I'll definitely
Yeah.
watch it. All right. So the next question, what details in shooting gears and archery gear makes the biggest impact?
Um, you always want more forgiving gear because it's going to be more forgiving for you, and you can definitely, you know, um, manipulate a lot more. Um, so one thing is, longer axle to axle bolts. They're going to be more forgiving. They're going to be more steady, depending on how you set it up. Same thing with, I same thing with guns. I have a 911 and it's a longer barrel. I feel so much more steady with it when I shoot it. Then I switch over to my Hellcat, I think it's snappy because it's so much smaller than the barrel. I
Mm.
just feel like a longer barrel is more forgiving. And same thing with a longer bow, axle to axle bow. It's more forgiving and more steady that way. So with the gear like that, it makes a difference. But once you build a relationship with that weapon, you, you can become more accurate with the shorter one, once you learn it there.
Yeah, it's very cool. Like since you're more familiar with the firearms, it's very similar to, having like a full size firearm, full
Mm.
size gun with the biggest grip you can get, longer barrels, right? I think it's almost the same thing as archery, right? Like if you want something that's going to be the most forgiving, basically easier to shoot, right? Allows for most error. Yeah, like a bigger bow is going to be more forgiving, right? Like if you see my bow at all, cool. Like you see like my target bow, how it's got that super long stabilizer at the end of it with a bunch
Yeah.
of weights everywhere.
Yep.
That's pretty much me just making it like my optimal setup. So it's very similar to like someone having like an open gun. right? Just like specced out with like fine tuning their loads, having the compensator, having the gas pedal, having like brass grips that like cut to your hands and stuff like that. It's so it's if it, you got if you can compare it that way, it's they're very similar in that matter.
So are you guys saying that bow has recoil? Does it? I don't know what size my bow is. I don't know if it's a big, small, or medium sized bow, but uh, does the smaller bow meaning that it will have more recoil than a bigger bow, or is it
Uh,
just the same?
tr Traditionally, yeah, right. And,
Okay,
and in archery terms, the term like instead of it being recoil, it's going to be like hand shock or something like that.
hand shock.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. So for example, right, if you take like a budget beginner type bow and you shoot it compared to like a high end bow, like a
Hmm.
flagship bow, you're gonna feel differences.
Mm.
One's gonna be smoother, one's gonna be easier to draw. Um, when you shoot that nicer bow, it's like not gonna move in your hand. You're not gonna feel any vibration. Versus that cheaper bow, you're gonna feel that vibration and all that stuff. But um, I've always been the one to not really care about the aftershock, right?
Hmm.
I've like, because again, once that arrow's gone, it's gone. Um, but I know some guys like some guys like to have that feedback, but some others don't. So it really like archery is such a subjective thing. Um, so yeah. So I don't want to say that bows have recoil, but there is like a term for it
Yeah.
in the
I
archery
think
world.
I think I think the best way to compare recoil to on a bow is you look at our stabilizers. Some people have the bars up front, the bars up back. Some people have more weight up front, more weight out back. So when that person shoots that ball, they pull through that shot. Sometimes you're going to see that ball jump forward or jump back, depending on how much weight you have forward or back. Normally, you want that ball balanced when you're at full draw. And if your bow is dropping too fast when you're shooting, and that's going to cause you to maybe push down more on your shot. If your bow is, you have too much weight on that, on the back or so, it's going to cause different deviations. So, you're fine tuning that to be balanced to where you like it. Although, if hopefully that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All
It's very
right.
similar to how some guns, right? Like how you can add in brass grips
Hmm.
or you can, add weight here and there wherever you need to be. Or some guys like steel guns and some guys like polymer guns, right? It's basically the same thing.
Like I always like a heavier gun and a little heavier bow, just because I'm gonna feel more steady. Like
Hmm.
my bow, the Matthews Lift from last year's flagship, is meant to be light. It's the new light bow, but it was so light that I added so much weight to it because I like a heavier setup.
All right. Hopefully, I'm not asking too many stupid questions.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
No stupid questions.
Yeah, I mean, this is how much I know about bows, guys. All right, because I don't know nothing about bows. That's why I'm asking all these questions. Like how someone who doesn't know anything about guns, they will ask you like these random questions.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. So next question is, how do you guys practice on the field and off the field for both archery and guns?
Like in a way, you think about it, no, how often do you dry fire practice? Like quite a bit. Yeah,
Uh,
dry firing. Yeah, like
Like
I don't really dry
every day
fire.
almost.
If I want to be 100% honest, I only dry fire once in a blue moon when I have the
Yeah.
time.
But a dry fire, dry fire practicing, it's oh man, it makes a huge difference. And like I always talk about the was it the guy from Japan that showed up in the US? He's a soft was it airsoft pro
Yep.
shooter, and that's a awesome video. I love that video. Dry firing, my gun. And then, when I practice my release for my bow, and I basically it's dry firing. I hook up a string. I have a practice string. I just work through the shot. Mentally I work through the shot. I want to pull through it. It has to be a surprise shot. With the trigger dry firing, I want to make sure it's crisp and nice. I want to hear nice clicks on it. I want to make sure I practice that reset. That could be as fast as possible once that resets. And then, on top of that too, I don't always shoot in the backyard all the time. I pull up a piece of paper when I tune the arrows. I draw a dot And sometimes I just draw back and I just look at it. I just practice my flow. Practice my flow. Same thing with my pistol. I pull it up and I practice with the flow. I keep backing up, keep backing up. It gets smaller. Smaller it is, the more I know, the more focus I can focus on it and just try to be steady and mentally walk myself through it. Because when you're actually gonna shoot, it's different because you have that pressure of shooting it. So I'm not gonna shoot. I'm telling myself I'm not gonna shoot. I'm just gonna practice my flow, practice my steadiness, and mentally work myself through it.
That's great you said that because I was actually just talking to some target archers too about that because I was like, man, like I cannot hold my bow steady like worth nothing. And so after messing with some weights and balancing the bow out, they were like, hey man, like next time you're in the garage or something, just pick a spot on a target and just hold it there. Don't send the arrow, but just go back to full draw and hold it there and time yourself. Create intervals, right? Like maybe hold it there for 15 seconds, let down, do it again, and then maybe increase it to like 20 seconds, right? And just keep doing that over and over again. And that honestly helped me tremendously. I think it's just conditioning my visual, practice, and then also uh, conditioning my body, of holding this bow for that long and whatever it may be. Um, and another thing I like to do is blank bail shooting with my bow. So meaning like I'll stand like 5 feet from the target, not even caring about where I'm aiming at. Um, but my main focus there is working on my shot execution, making sure that shot is actually a good shot. I'm not forcing anything to happen. Everything's going to happen organically. That shot is breaking on a surprise shot, right? So it's very similar to dry fire, which is paying attention to different things.
Yeah. How about like when it comes to hunting wise? I mean, I tell people, you're hunting, you want to practice like you're hunting. So you can be the backyard hero. You can be shooting bullseyes. You can be on flat ground. Oh, you hitting bullseyes all day. You're super proud of yourself. But when you're actually hunting, you've been outside in the cold for 5+ hours. You're in hunting clothes. You're bulkier, and your animal walks up and you're trying to shoot it. You can't draw back because you're too bulky or you're too cold. And if you don't practice those things when it actually comes to it, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly.
So
I think it's
practice
very,
like,
very,
yeah,
yeah, I think it's very similar to people who conceal carry, but they don't ever practice from a
yeah.
concealed carry setup,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I think it's very similar in that manner.
So Tanner, you brought up a vision. Do you guys target focus with a bow, or do you guys focus on the sight of the bow?
I'm target focused 100%.
Target
Target
focus?
focus. Target
Okay.
focus 100%. Because if your muscle memory, you're all naturally there. You've already trained yourself, muscle memories. You're just gonna focus on your target and naturally trust yourself, the float, the pull through the trigger, and you should be good there. But I focus on target.
Okay. Damn, I didn't know that. I've been sight focused this whole time with my bow.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to shooting too, because everyone kind of has their own way of doing things.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people will be like, "Oh, well, I'm still front sight focused," and then some guys are like, "Well, I like to see the pin more than the target. I like to have a blurry target and a clear pin." And again, I don't think it ultimately matters as long as you're able to put the bullet where it wants to go or the arrow where it needs to go.
Okay. What are some common mistake that you guys see a new bow shooter do?
Oh man, it's a big list.
It is a big
It's
list.
a big
Yeah.
list. Definitely a big list. I'd probably would say the one thing that comes to mind is probably grip. Probably grip is probably the biggest, I'll probably say. Um, if that bow is properly ethically set up to that shooter, everything's all perfect along with arrows and everything. Number one thing I probably say is grip. Grip is number one. It's always going to be, off and on. You're gonna see people with big old bruises on their arms because their grip is off and how they're pushing left or right. Grip is number one. Even when it comes to, shooting, I've seen people death grip the crap out of that gun and the bow too. And it makes a big factor.
Yeah, I don't think I could pinpoint like a mistake that archers do, like new archers do, but I think it's just form, right? And I think that because they're new, they don't have a ton of experience or even a ton of guidance. So they're not, and it's as simple as they don't know what they don't know.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, a lot of times when I see new archers, I see them with like poor setups, right? Either draw length too short, draw length too long, and they're not getting consistent anchor points, which is what's, which your grip is an anchor point, right? But like when people draw back their bow and they're selling into their strings, there's what we call anchor points. Very similar to like how one would grip like a grip a pistol or something like that, right? Like everything needs to be the same. And I think new archers don't really care about the anchor points as much. I think that's why I guess that's I think probably the biggest mistake that I see is that their anchor points aren't consistent.
So, Stefan, when you were talking about grip, are you talking about your support hand or your dominant hand? Because I know that like as a right-handed shoot person, you hold the bow with your left, right? Are you talking about
Yep.
like your left your support hands like gripping
Yep.
the bow tool? Okay.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's gonna depend. Your your dominant hand's gonna play a factor too.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, some people like like me, I have a thumb release. I'm anchored here, but if I'm pitched too low down or too high up, it's also gonna play a factor on where my arrow hits,
Okay.
because you're initially hooked up to that string, that energy is hooked up to. If I'm twisting too much down, when that arrow releases, it's gonna play a factor in how the arrow flies left or right or up or down. So it really plays that factor too. But for the most part, when the bow is properly all set up ready and the person is shooting it, the number one thing I see is probably the grip, the way they hold their grip. Is going to be when the bow's all properly all set up.
Hmm.
The grip is number one. Your left hand, yeah, supporting.
So um should you grip pretty hard or should you grip pretty loose? Because when I grip my bow, my support hand is just basically there to support the bow. I'm not actually squeezing down onto the bow. Is that the right way to grip it, or should I add more pressure?
Yeah, I always tell people, you have a wristling on your bow for a reason.
Hmm.
So let that bow naturally do its thing. Let it sit there. You're going to support that. Let it
Okay.
naturally do its thing. If it jumps out, don't worry, you have that wristling. It's going to catch the bow. The more fingers and the more pressure and the more grip you put on that bow, the
Mm,
more it's gonna anticipate, and it's gonna amplify your flaws.
okay. That that makes sense. All right. So the next question, uh, last question actually. What are the ways to improve if you want to get better at archery?
I'll let Tanner take this one.
Sorry. Um, Ways to improve. Honestly, with archery, I found so a lot of like for me, I'm a little different because I feel like the majority of the stuff that I've learned this far has just been all self-taught and like self-experimentation. Um, Honestly, just like shooting, YouTube is a wonderful resource nowadays. So find good archers on YouTube and try to emulate what they're doing, try to figure out why they're doing what and give it a shot. But the thing is that like you can't just try it for like one or two shots. You have to like actually put some time into it. Um, but I think the biggest thing to get better at archery is just getting a lot of reps. And when I say reps, I don't mean just like, all right, I'm just gonna go back like into my backyard and just shoot 20 arrows like a day. I'm actually meaning like meaningful reps, meaning like put some thought into what you're doing for once, and actually think about every single shot. Like, okay, so like this shot, I'm holding steady. I'm gonna break the shot, boom, broke perfectly, arrow landed right where it was. Let's say the next shot, it's like, okay, pin was steady, broke the shot, but it hit to the right. Okay, why do you think that happened? And that's like the stuff we have to think about when I say put in the reps. Um, I think so. Joel Turner is a pretty known archery coach. I think he runs Shot IQ is what he calls it, um, and he's big on like the mental side of things in that aspect. And I started listening to him more on podcasts and YouTube videos and all that, and I started implementing that in my own practice, and it's honestly been tremendous. Um, so yeah, when he talks about doing more reps, he talks about doing like mental reps as well.
Joe Turner is huge. He's huge into the mental side of it. Um, he's also retired cop. And if you guys ever cool, if you get the chance, listen to his stuff. Huge. Super knowledgeable, super helpful. His son is what, 15 or 16? I don't remember exactly.
I think he just turned 18 this year.
Just he turned 18 this year. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, talk about a kid going into such a high stress situation of levels of shooting, and he puts grown men to shame. And you
Yeah,
just it's he's dude, He's a badass shooter.
Yeah, his son, so Joel's son, Bodie Turner, was 15 years old when he won Vegas.
Mm,
And to anyone listening, Vegas is like IPSC worlds
nice.
Game of
for shooting.
perfection.
Yeah, and he won that. And like at 15 years old, he's shooting out of his division against grown men who are pros, and he just mopped the floor. So he's a great testament to what Joel Turner teaches. And Koo, I actually posted a video snippet of Joel Turner in one of his classes into our Facebook group.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and I don't know if he listened to it or not, but he was talking about the mental side of things.
Okay.
In the post I made, I was like, this is honestly very similar to what shooting guns is like on the mental side of things.
Was
Like
that
they want.
class in Minnesota?
What's
Or
that?
did what was that class in Minnesota?
Oh, no, no, no. That was just a YouTube snippet. I think they live in Washington, but I think they travel though. And you can also do like an online
Okay.
class. Yeah.
They travel a lot for it. He goes to like, professional NFL teams and he walks them through their processes and things like that too. Not just shooting wise, but mentally wise for everything. It's a great course. It's definitely a great course if you invest the money into it. You won't regret it.
So, which bow would you guys recommend if you want to get better at shooting? Like, would you guys recommend a compound bow, a traditional bow, a crossbow? Like, if you want to, like, if someone want to get better at just bow shooting in general, what bow should they start with?
So I always say, what's your budget? How deep do you want to dig into this rabbit hole? Because it can go deep. Um, but how often do you shoot? I ask, I when I used to work at the shop, people come in like, hey, I want to get a bow. I always ask them questions. What's your budget? What is your living status? Do you plan to shoot every day? Do you plan to shoot every once in a while? Because I've had guys who come in, buy the top of the line stuff, the top of the line accessories. They shoot the bow once a week or maybe once a month and they put it in the case. That bow lives in the case most of its life. And I've had guys who come in, I bought budget friendly stuff and they've shot it every single day. So I always ask, those questions. But best bang for the buck, if you're getting into it, archery isn't cheap. Um, I say if you plan to grow into it, you know, get something especially for a young kid, if you plan to grow into it, a kid's gonna constantly grow. Get a bow that's easily adjustable. But for me, I'm a grown man. I'm not gonna grow anymore. I wish I could grow more. But I I'm not too bad, Asian guy for being 5'8", I can't complain. But if it was me going to shop, I know I'm gonna be fully invested. I'm gonna go for the top of the line, but budget friendly. Bear bowls are fantastic budget friendly bowls, and I would even compare the solo cam bear bowl to those old solo cam Matthews. But bear bowls are fantastic. They're ready to hunt or ready to shoot bowls. And like yours is perfect for it. Budget friendly. And when you do get deeper into it, you could definitely upgrade your accessories to it.
So, are you saying that we should start with a compound bow then?
Yeah, start with the compound bow. I mean,
Okay.
you want to you could definitely dig into the traditional world, traditional shooting, but it's very different because tuning a bow at the wheel, a compound bow compared to a traditional bow, you got to tune that arrow. It's different.
Okay. What about you, Tanner?
Yeah, I would say compound archery as well with the
Okay.
the wheels.
Hmm.
As far as like brands or like should you get like the most expensive thing? Honestly, I think get whatever fits your budget. Um, at the end of the day, like it just depends on how much you shoot it and how much you care about it. Because like Stefan said, like I know guys who get top of the line everything and they're just starting out, but they just want to get everything the best that they can. And they shoot it just a week before hunting season, and then they wonder why, nothing ever works out for them and why they spent all this money on this and doesn't work and all this type of stuff. And it's like, man, like I don't know, man. I've seen guys who have 10-year-old bare bows, um, and they're still they shoot lights out. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think nowadays, especially like bows, they're all made pretty good quality.
And
So
there's always
it's
that
it's really
argument of
personal preference, but
the
again,
argument
cool.
of brands.
Yeah, yeah, like the cultists,
Y-
whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, cool. I think it's very similar to like shooting a gun, right? Like somebody could just go to a store and they want to buy it. Hey, I saw this on YouTube. It's a 2011 Staccato. It's got a whatever, all these attachments on it. Sure, but like, okay, you still suck with it. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
just because you get something expensive doesn't mean you're good.
Yeah.
Um, or someone who gets a Glock, just like a stock, maybe like a law enforcement trading Glock for like $300, but they're putting the work in. They're putting a lot like they're shooting on the range a lot, dry firing a lot with it, just getting really good with it. They're learning the principles of shooting rather than kind of relying on the cool, fancy gizmos. And then, like Stefan said, from there, once you learn the principles of it, you can then, you know, look into upgrades and looking how to make things a little more enjoyable or a little bit more forgiving. But I think the biggest thing is just going to be learning the principles of how to shoot.
Do you guys ever chrono your arrows?
Yeah.
Yep.
And does that really matter? Like, so for example, if I was just to go to a range or shoot a match, unimportant match, I would just shoot any FMJ, any green, because I feel like it's still gonna hit the target no matter what. So how important is it to chrono your arrows?
Um, I would say in the archery world, it's only really important like for your task you're doing.
Hmm.
So for most like target indoor leagues, there is a cap on how fast arrows can go, and I think it's like 280 feet per second.
Mm. Why is that?
So like you can't have too fast of a bow. I don't know why, honestly.
Okay.
Maybe
I don't
Stefan
know why
knows, but
either. I don't know why they've been very vague about it. I can never get a
yeah,
straight answer. It's I don't know why they put a cap on it.
me neither. Yeah, I don't know, but like so like that aspect, you do want to arrow your setup or chrono your setup, and make sure everything is within regulation. Um, And in some other archery events, there's what's called TAC, which is Total Archery Challenge. And it's just a fun event where they set up different targets at, different inclines and really far yardages. And some guys like to use their hunting arrows, which is usually a little bit heavier. And some guys like to set up specific arrows for that, right? And with with the longer range stuff, a lighter arrow is gonna be a flatter trajectory and get you more yardage with your bow. Um, but yeah, it honestly just kind of depends on what context you're doing. Because again, some people like for hunting wise, some people think a heavy arrow is a lot better. Some people like lighter arrows. But honestly, at the end of the day, I think can you even put the arrow where it needs to go is the most important thing
Shot
personally for
placement.
me. Right.
All right. So a question for you, Stefan. Do you teach people how to shoot a bow? Like, do you hold classes and stuff like that?
Oh, I don't hold classes. When I still work at the shop, I've had a group of guys come around the time. I kind of teach them here and there, but I got quite
Hold on, hold
busy.
on. So
Oh,
for those people that doesn't know, what shop are you talking about?
Also, I used to work at Capra's Sporting Goods.
Okay.
They're not open anymore. They closed down. Unfortunately, they closed down. But had a group. I met a lot of people through there. Um, the archery community, well, the outdoor industry in general, meeting a lot of different people, a lot of brands. It's fantastic. I miss it. But I do teach people. If somebody reaches out to me personally, like, hey, I don't mind, I definitely walk them through it. And when they do show up, like for like a lesson or something, I like to teach. I don't like. I've been to shops where they don't like to teach or show you because they want you to come back. So I
Hmm.
don't like that. I'm like, you want to teach. If you gain the trust of your customer or your person you're working with, and you teach them, walk them through it, why you do this, why you do that, why I believe in this, they're gonna trust you. They're gonna want to come back and they're gonna want to learn more. And, they're gonna want to dig into this rabbit hole and have more love into it. I don't like to hold back that knowledge. Like some shops do that, or some certain individuals do that. I don't like that. I don't believe in holding back the information because you're only gonna get better if you want to dig more into it.
Okay. So for people that want to get more into bow shooting, is there like a specific website for them to look for? So for example, like if someone want to get into USPSA shooting, IDPA, three gun, they could find all those matches on practice score. So for the bow or the archery world, is there like a certain website or certain spot where people like me could go look for if we want to get better, if we want to go and compete? Are you guys aware of any website like that or place?
It's tough. I'll probably say it's kind of probably agree. Like it's tough to look at a website to try to get all the information on one spot to your one-stop shop goal.
Hmm.
It's definitely tough, but to learn wise, shops always will have like the introduction to archery like that. But it's tough to like ASA, stuff like that. It's tough to you got to find the right people to help guide you. Minnesota does like for example, Minnesota doesn't offer ASA no, shooting wise, but I
Did
think
you say
South Dakota,
ASA?
yeah, I
What
think
is
South
that?
Dakota, it's archery. I forgot, I'm blanking now. What is it, Tanner? What's the
Archery
total?
Shooting Association.
Yeah, so she, yeah,
Okay.
South Dakota just opened one if you didn't know, and oh yeah, we sent on the group chat, but they just opened one. I wish Minnesota would open one because it would be more eye-opening to everybody. But as in the world of archery, trying to find those certain things, you have to really dig into it yourself or find the right people to help guide you to there.
Mm,
Yeah, it's honestly, it's very, I would say, very versus the gun world. Because
got
Ku, you're familiar with practice score, right? Like
hmm
everything is under practice score. You can just look up, you can go on practice score and then find out where you live, and then boom, matches pop up everywhere.
hmm
Versus archery, it's like there's local like club level competitions or tournaments, and then there's like state held ones, and there's national held ones, and then within that, it's like, okay, well, is this the ASA sanctioned? Is this NFAA sanctioned? Is this, there's like so many different types of archery that it's honestly very confusing. But I think to those who are listening, if you're wanting to get into like the competition or tournament style archery, I think the place to go is going to be your local archery shop. They're going to know everything. They can guide you from there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so last question for both of you. What is your goal? What is your guys' goal in this archery stuff? What are you guys hoping to get out of it?
$1 million. Now,
Nice.
honestly, I do it as as almost like a getaway. Sounds kind of corny, but no, I just think it's really relaxing. And then on the side of it, I do like the target archery stuff to be a better bow hunter. So, I'm not really in it for sponsors or to make money or whatever. I'm in it because it's really therapeutic to me. And we all go through daily life stressors, and I think archery is just one of my getaways, kind of decompress a little bit. And yeah,
One arrow at a time.
yep, one at a time.
Oh, I used to do I used to do strictly everything out of my garage, starting from a young age. I just loved it. And my dad didn't really dig into it. He was the type of hunter that would buy broadhead, slap it on, just go hunting the next day. Miss a deer, blame it on the bow. It was actually when he didn't put the small details into it and doing it. And working within the community too, I've seen too many good people, hard working people come into a shop, spend so much money, and the person who's setting up their bowl does a half-ass job. I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's just so wrong. So my wife like started motivating me. You really like it. Why don't you just work at a shop? Started working at a shop, and I liked it a lot more than I expected. Met a lot of great people, formed a lot of great relationships. And, I put myself out there and I pride myself in my work. And, I know that I'm not gonna make $1 million in this archery world, because it's hard to, it's impossible. But it's therapeutic. I love the work I do. I love seeing that, hey, I set that ball up for that guy and he just won't stay with it or something, or, we're having a good time. You don't have to hunt if you have a bowl. You can go out and have fun, and it's just therapeutic. It's just fun to you meet good people. And I just want to keep pushing myself to get better and just, like I met you guys,
For you, Stefan, have you ever thought about or would opening up your own training business, has that ever crossed your mind, or would that be one of your goals to
Yeah,
work
it's
towards one?
definitely
Okay.
definitely a goal. Yeah, me and my wife have talked about it. I have some crib. pretty crazy ideas. I don't want to say it on here.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, but I'll have to share it with you guys.
Okay.
I think it's a pretty good idea, and I definitely want to reach out more to like our Hmong community to try to let them know, hey, you can trust the shops, these shops I go to, I vouch for, because not everybody's gonna want to go to a shop they don't know
Yeah,
or they don't trust, because your hard-earned money goes a long way.
yeah.
That's actually funny you brought that up too, because I actually want to start my own shop these days.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But like, yeah, because I when I moved up here, I just started getting to my own stuff because I've been to so many places where they've done me wrong.
yeah,
Like, I'm just like, dude, why are you like doing that? Like,
yeah.
knowing damn well I'm gonna be back here the next day to try to fix this. But yeah, so like I got on my equipment and I was like working on just my buddy stuff in the garage, and I was like, got that same fulfilling feeling that you did, Stefan, of like putting pride into this, spreading the love of archery, continue to growing the sport, and knowing that you set someone up right the first time is very satisfying. And not to say that there's bad shops here in Minnesota, but I don't know. It's like I feel like I could start my own business doing this, but
Yeah, yeah.
I understand that it's very saturated and it's very small, so it's obviously some obstacles we're gonna have to gamble there, but whatever.
Maybe we got to partner up here, you know.
There you
Hey,
go. There you go, man.
look at that. Look at that.
Uh, all right, so last question. I know that I kept saying that, but is this for my own knowledge. So you know how like in the shooting world, you can make your own ammo and stuff, right? Reloading. So is that do people make their own arrows and stuff, like in their garage, or everything is from the store?
Both.
Both. Okay.
So, I mean, you know, reloading is probably going to be, building arrows.
Hmm.
I know a couple people who make their own shafts, their own arrows, but it is a quite a tedious process of work. So it is easier to buy your own shafts, your own arrows, carbon arrows, and then you buy your components, like your inserts on top and your nocks. That's gonna knock onto the arrow along with your fletchings and how much weight you want to put in the grains per inch, how heavy of an arrow you want, how light of an arrow you want. And if you want heavy helicals for your arrow to spin left or spin right. So just people I always tell people put your work into building your own arrows and you're gonna appreciate the sport even more because
Hmm.
you're not gonna, oh, I just missed my target. It's in my shed. I want to make sure it's still straight or in the dirt. But yeah, this arrow building, just I'll probably say it's similar to, reloading.
Do so for arrow building, do they have like like a press, like how uh in the gun world we have our own uh reloading press, or is everything done by hand for the arrows?
It's like fletching jigs. They call it the jigs that you can, set at different degrees, how high you want it, how low you want it, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's in a way, yeah, it's a press jig,
Okay.
yep.
All right. Well, anything else, guys? Anything you guys want to share? Anything you guys want to talk about before we end this podcast?
I'm good.
All
Other
right.
than Steph's YouTube channel.
Yeah, so yeah, so for the viewers, where can they find both of you? Stefan, you could start.
Oh, so I mainly started on Facebook, just Steph Outdoors, and then I'm slowly starting to try to upload everything onto YouTube. But Steph Outdoors, just look me up. Send me if you guys want to reach out to me. Send me a message, or look me up YouTube or anything like that. Like no such thing as a dumb question. Reach out to me. I'll be happy to help out. And uh, you know, I always want to grow the sport. Grow more relationships within this.
Tanner?
Instagram, YouTube, it's just my name, Tanner Liang. Um, yeah, yeah. On my YouTube, I'm actually starting to put more out like long form content. So not short form anymore, long form. So if you guys want to watch like just a dude putting out relatable content, then you can check out my YouTube.
You had a good video of us when we shot the other day.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I will put all your guys' information in the description. So yeah, if nothing else, then I guess that'll be it for the podcast. And, I appreciate you guys coming in and taking your time to talk with me, even though I don't know shit about bow. So yeah, appreciate it, man. Um,
No,
It was fun. It was fun.
it was fun.
you
Look
guys
forward to
have
shoot matches with you guys.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Whenever, man. Hit me up. I will definitely hit you guys up when I'm ready to train more on the bow
Cool. You shooting this match this weekend?
this weekend.
Cold War carbine
No,
match.
no. If I want to be honest, the reason why I'm not shooting the carbine match is because it takes a very long time. One stage takes about an hour because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of new shooters, and it takes forever. I don't think I will have enough time to do that match and then go to work. So that's the reason why I tend to avoid rifle matches, just because it takes a very long time.
Great.
Yeah.
I just signed up for it today, so
Yeah, I mean it's fun. Don't get me wrong. The match is fun and everything is great, but it's just that it takes too long. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just that my schedule doesn't have time for it.
yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All right. All right, man. You guys have a good night, man.
Yeah,
You
thank you
too,
guys.
brother.
I
Thank
All
you.
appreciate
right.
it, man. Have
I'm
a good
gonna
night.
stop recording right now.